What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to another episode of our 1/48 scale Su-15 that we are building for the NATO versus Warsaw Pact group build. Now today we're going to go ahead and push forward. Let's go ahead and see what we did last episode. Now we have the cockpit and the front wheel bay more or less where we want them for right now. We might have to do a little bit more work there, but I've got some extra spare parts. We should be fine for right now. We also have the fuselage. The intake trunkings are in. We had a little trouble with those, but everything looks fine. We need to go ahead and make sure that we can fit this together, and I'm hoping today to go ahead and glue everything in place. We also have our intake trunkings in there, and they look fine. There's no seam in there, so we are happy about that. Might have to do a little bit more sanding, but for the most part, I think they're pretty sweet. Now we're going to go ahead and move on here to the front insert there for the cockpit, at least the surrounding there and the windscreen and all that. We do need to do a little bit of scratch building on that, but we'll do that later. We're not going to focus on that right yet. We also have done some work there on the wings. We have added some piping and whatnot for the wheelbase, and we even managed to go ahead and fill in the front missile launcher rail as well. We have the flaps installed, the ailerons installed. Everything looks pretty decent, so we are ready for priming and painting on these. We do have a little bit more work to do on the fuselage side of those wheelbays. So for today's episode, I want to go ahead and start off here with some of the sub-assemblies for the rear tail. We have the vertical tail as well as the horizontal tail planes. I want to go ahead and get those assembled. They're each 2 parts, plus that rear tail does have that rudder as a separate piece. I want to get that nicely glued together, get that installed. So let's go ahead and cue up that time lapse, push forward, get some work done. Now I wanted to go ahead and take a quick pause here and talk a little bit about what I'm decided to do here for the paint on the cockpit. First of all, I'm going to be using some white Stalin-Res primer. Typically I use the gray color, but I just wanted to go ahead and try the white because I wanted a little bit of a brighter color, and I think that the primer will definitely affect just how bright or how dull that cockpit color is. I'm going to use that over all of the internal wheelbase as well as the cockpit, and anything else is going to be that bluish gray color. I've actually pulled a couple paints out of my Russian aircraft set that I bought for my lag. I'm going to be using a couple different colors out of there, but we're going to start off with a nice kind of a grayish blue color, and I'm going to overcoat everything on the inside, and then we're going to come back, we're going to overspray that with a very lightened color sky blue and gray mixture that I have from the aqueous line. So I think that's going to be a really good idea to go ahead and do that. Give us some shadow, give us some depth, and then once that's all dry, I can come back and I can start doing some detail painting with some flat black, because there's some consoles on the inside here that I want to make sure that I pick out. Once that's all dry, we can then come back, overcoat it with a nice gloss coat, and we'll be looking pretty decent. So let's go ahead and get back into that time lapse. We're going to attack the cockpit, we're going to get the wheel wells painted up and see what else we can do. Let's keep going. Alright everybody, we are back, and I have done quite a bit of work here on the fuselage. As you can see, we have it nicely glued together, though this is going to be a very long seam, both the top and the bottom. That's going to be kind of annoying to go ahead and fix. Also, we notice here with the wings, we attached those into the side of the fuselage. We do have a lot of little scratch building we want to go ahead and do on the inside of those fuselage bays. Want to make sure we get some wires and added interest in there as well. But other than that though, these wings look pretty decent. I'm happy with them. We'll put them aside for right now. We do have our nose wheel bay here, and we haven't done any sort of scratch building on the inside of that, but that's okay. We're not really going to see much up there anyway. As you saw from the time lapse, I did also put on the front instrument panel decal. I don't really like these flat plastic with the decals. They don't have a lot of depth to them. Hopefully you won't really see it. It'll be hidden underneath that windscreen shroud. Now on the cockpit itself, we have that lovely kind of bluish gray color, and then we airbrushed a very light color over top of that, very lightened blue-gray, and I think that honestly looks a little bit better than I anticipated it was going to look. Now this color paint, I'm not sure if it's exactly 100%, but I think it's pretty close to what I have in our reference photos, so I think it's going to be okay. I think once we drop some of the panel line accent color on that, it's going to be really, really cool. It's going to pop all that detail. Right now, though, we have a gloss coat over top of that just to make sure that when we do next episode come back with our panel line, we're not going to destroy the paint too much. Also, the rear tail planes, there's a little bit of an overhang here. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be that way, so we'll do some reference work there and we'll figure out, but otherwise we do need to clean those up. The tail as well does need a little bit more work. I need to sand down some of the edges and make sure it's nice and smooth. I have a couple more parts to put on that, but this is good for right now. When we go ahead and test fit it to the model, we can see it does fit decently. There's a little bit of a gap though, so we might have to go ahead and make sure that when we glue that down, we get all the surfaces nicely prepared. Of course, we do have to contend with that crazy seam there on the top of the fuselage and the bottom of the fuselage. That's going to be kind of difficult to get rid of. A lot of sanding, some rescribing, some super glue filling, all sorts of craziness with that. That's not going to be that fun to do, to be honest. But we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today. Until our next episode, you guys know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on episode number 5 of the NATO versus Warsaw Pact group build. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.